Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Hey there. You have found another episode of the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thank you so much for coming along on the journey of this show that is designed to be a resource for those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society, it is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. My name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to co-host this show every single week with Craig Brown. Now, Craig is an industry veteran and former PLM leader at General Motors. Hey, Craig, how are you today?
I'm good, Thom. It's good to hear your voice. I'm looking forward to our interviewee today because she has a similar background to mine at another big industrial company, but she's still doing a few more things, and we'll let her tell the story here in a second.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited too because our guest today is Suzanne Kopcha, and she is the Vice President of Consumer Products and Retail for Siemens Digital Industries Software. Now, what she does is she helps consumer products companies define their digital transformation strategies, and she does a great job at it. To boot, she spent 25 years at Procter Gamble before moving over to Siemens. So, Suzanne, welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast.
Thanks, Thom. I'm really excited to be here with you and Craig.
Oh, we're glad to have you. Can you give us a little bit more about your background?
Sure. 25 years ago, I went to Procter Gamble, and I actually started my career as a data analyst. And that was at a time when data was on a mainframe and we had to write programs. But the fun part of it was we had a sales vice president, and he used to call me Conscience. And that was kind of my role. I would tell him what he could or couldn't say and bring insight to the data. And, when I think about where we are today and the importance of data and AI, and I'm kind of coming back home in full circle. But in the middle of that, I had just a phenomenal career with P&G doing a whole bunch of different things. I did IT, I did analytics, I did M&A, and then I had the opportunity to work in corporate strategy. And that was really a defining change for me. Loved it. Drove home every day and went, oh my gosh, I'm getting paid for this work. It was really fun. But I did spend 8 years at P&G doing PLM strategy and innovation and delivery of programs, and got the opportunity to retire from P&G at what was a pretty young age, and took an opportunity to flip my career and come work for Siemens in a business executive position, helping other companies around the world do things that I had spent 20 years doing with P&G. So lots of fun, lots of diverse experiences, and now in a place where I have the opportunity to impact the industry much broader from my experience. So it's, I'm having fun.
So, Suzanne, congratulations on joining the industrial team at Siemens. I've been able to interact with those folks a fair amount over my automotive career, and I think it's Nand Kokar. He's now your counterpart on the automotive side, and he and I first met years ago talking about simulation. But what I found fascinating in the notes that we've been exchanging is you were a data scientist long before data science was cool. And I guess what I want to do with the audience is I want to remind them that where this all came from, right? And so it was really cool. You said you were the Conscience, right? Yeah. The vice president. You look at. So first, let's help those of people that don't have a consumer products background. Just first, what do most design and engineering people you meet, even people at Siemens, get wrong about consumer products? Is it they don't understand what it is, or is it other things? Remember, a lot of us are aircraft and automotive guys, maybe ship guys, maybe electronics, but we're not bottles of soap and toilet paper and things that Procter & Gamble did, right? Or maybe they don't do that.
I think one of the challenges a lot of companies or a lot of other industries have is consumer products is super diverse. I mean, when you think about the scope of products and the different kinds of design and manufacturing that have to happen, anything from a bottle of soap, a bottle of shampoo, all the way to, a washing machine that cares about 5G and electronics and software and ECAD and MCAD and all the things that automotive cares about. But one of the things that crystallizes it for me, I was in a conversation with someone actually from the aerospace industry, and I said, think about where the complexity is. I said, you have to design a plane and you have to have it fly, but there's tons of standards all over the world about runways and airspace and things like that.
Right.
And you make maybe hundreds of them.
Yeah, right. I mean, even compared to car companies, they don't make very many.
Okay. We have to design and manufacture billions of units of thousands of products. And sometimes I have to change the design for every plant. So think about if you have to change the plane for every runway it lands on.
Yeah. Did the audience, did you get that? She said billions with a B. I mean, you guys are the only industry I've found that built more stuff than we did. Right?
That's a lot of stuff.
That's
billions. It's a lot of stuff.
And
yeah, I mean, I had a picture of an airplane and then a diaper. I'm like, think about all the kids and babies in the world and how many diapers they go through.
Yeah.
How many diapers do you manufacture with all the different sizes and configurations? And how many planes do you manufacture?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
where the complexity is.
So you started to talk about the complexity at producing it around the world. And I learned, and you're going to elaborate a bit on it, I think, the real hard engineering is not so much in the bottle, though the bottle has to look beautiful or whatever the product is, because you're in the consumer business, right? You're in the style business. There's really interesting engineering in the manufacturing and logistics, because you got to move those billions of parts somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
And you mentioned in your note the manufacturing sites may not have the same equipment because of different regions of the world, things like that.
Oh, sure. One of the histories in consumer products was that years ago, there's tremendous autonomy in the plant manager's role. Plant managers were king. Profit in consumer products was driven when you could efficiently manufacture these billions of units. Mm-hmm. So if you were the plant manager, you had the liberty to define what equipment was in your plant, how it was maintained, what line configurations allowed you to have the most efficient operations. So
they were making trade-offs then of people versus machines based upon where in the world it was, because some places
it could
labor
just
isn't that expensive, right?
Yeah, it could be that you just have different sources of machine, and I buy from this OEM, and you buy from this OEM. I have a 200-speed motor, I have a 300-speed motor, I have a vat this big or that big, or I have 3 vats and you have 2. A lot of decisions about the equipment in the lines were made locally for a host of reasons, but a big part of it was because that plant manager was given the leadership autonomy to deliver their total delivered cost. And how they delivered that total delivered cost, they were given autonomy to make a lot of decisions. Okay. So there weren't, in consumer products, there weren't production platform technologies or production platforms, whether it was the equipment or it was the configuration of the plant, the way that people think about those things now. And we're still pretty immature as an industry in those things. There's, of course, some very big thought leaders. But when the equipment is different, right, the technology transfer to manufacturing becomes a nightmare. So you have to almost have magicians in that engineering scene, because the things that are constant are, I designed this product and I test it with consumers. So I know that consumers love this. Right. And what comes out the other end has to be this. But the materials can change, the equipment can be different. The humidity in the air is different. So sometimes it's like they got to figure out how to make magic in between to make sure that they get a product on the outside that, meets what the weighted purchase intent, was defined by.
And, I went to school in the Cincinnati area, and I was always fascinated by Cincinnati.
Oh, did you go to UC? Okay, awesome.
But I was always fascinated by these different industries, from jet engines on the north side of town to you guys downtown to other companies around the area. And a lot of the simulation technology, at least simulation technology in the United States for mechanical systems, came from that part of the country. And you're like, wow, I was, a long time ago, when I was in school, computer-based simulation was just starting, right? Structural Dynamics Research Corporation was just starting. And so my point with everybody is Procter & Gamble, as one example, on the manufacturing side, was at the forefront of this digitization, right?
Absolutely.
General Electric with jet engines was at the forefront of this digitalization phase. And we car guys a little further north, we caught it in the next wave, and we've all been doing a lot of digitalization work in the meantime. And we all have engineering challenges. Some of it's in the machinery in the plant, some of it's in the product itself, and in some cases it's both, right? And so it's really interesting. So, I want to talk with you a bit about data science. It's really a popular term right now, like everybody's discovered something new. And one of my sons has decided this has got to be his career, because he likes computers and he's pretty good at math and history. And so, I'm sure he'll be fine. However, I point out all the time, hey, it's been going on for a long time, decades. How do you think we figured out that people like different color cars? Or in your case, I remember an executive for Procter & Gamble at one of these conferences in Detroit talking about simulation. And he said, oh, it's all about what she wants. And he kept talking about the consumer. Well, we all know who the consumer is for consumer
Probably
products.
Thom.
It's mom, right? And so, and I'm sorry for the folks on the listening in. I don't mean to be sexist. I'm just pointing out Procter & Gamble really understood who was buying the product and who was making the decisions. And, the truck business, the pickup truck business, is exactly the same way. We know exactly who's buying trucks. And by the way, the people that buy Suburbans are not people that buy trucks. People buy Suburbans are women.
Right.
And so, interestingly enough, these data analytics to figure out market trends and to figure out what consumers want, it's been going on a long time. What's different now is computers have gotten really cheap at being able to process even more data. And so I'm curious from your vantage point, and I think you're probably teaching Siemens and keep doing it because they need to learn faster, in my opinion. But this whole point about, well, how do you take data analytics and instill it into the all of the technologies, the simulation technologies, the design technologies, and so on? I don't know, from your vantage point, is it a form of the business, a form of engineering that's just exploding because data analytics has become so inexpensive to do? I mean, what's the balance between the human part and now a computer doing machine learning part?
I think in mainstream, the balance is still a lot of humans. In mature industries and in mature companies, we're obviously seeing a tilt, and there's an enormous, number of examples where the shift is happening, significantly. We've got, giant retailers all over the world that are, with the acceleration of e-commerce, able to get real-time data about what's moving and what's not moving, and, change, especially if they own private label, change their private label plans. We have companies that are using data and AI to predict what their next innovations should be.
And what's their cycle? Yeah, what's their cycle time? It's not 4 years like a car. It's.
Oh no, it's weeks. Wow. I was in a meeting with an executive from a very large beauty company, and he said, I got ripped because I wasn't able to change the formulation and get a new product out on the market in 4 weeks because in response to a trend that was happening in the marketplace at that moment. Where, 5 years ago, we were talking about, it takes 4 years to get a new package on, in market. So the timelines for a product that's tweaked versus a new to the world product are, night and day from what they were just a few years ago, when you think about time.
And that's all due to the speed with which we're doing data analytics, or the fact that it's becoming pervasive?
I think it's the expectations that have changed. You know, we joke about the Amazon effect. The Amazon effect in that,
we enabled it.
when they were, logistically able to deliver same day, it changes people's expectations about how fast they want things to move. So data analytics and machine learning become a huge part of identifying what's happening in IoT, with trends and things like that. But I think it's also the ability to respond is, we used to 10 years ago talk about the intersection of CAD and simulation. Now we talk about the intersection of CAD, simulation, and AI, and you get things like, our NX product with generative design, and there's CAD can design better some things than the human mind can with the right technologies and solve problems that it takes, many, many people to do. Now, you will always need mastery. And I think that there are places where technology can do things and is getting really skilled to do things better than humans. And then there are also other places where technology can map out spaces and choices where someone with creative skills and mastery still needs to make the decision.
Yeah.
But they have a lot better data to inform that decision than they ever did before.
Yeah, too often in the past they were strictly their gut or their intuition, and maybe they were really skilled at a particular market, but so their intuition was correct. But now you can do it much better with data. You can even use simulation to explore parts of the domain that you couldn't measure.
Absolutely.
But fundamental physics, so you can probably guess pretty well. Well, putting that guess in front of you before you make the decision, rather than finding out after you made a mistake and a bit of a quality spill gets into the market. So it's interesting.
I'd love to add on to that, because it was actually a conversation we were having this morning around, I think the space of simulation will actually explode. I think it's still pretty immature in a lot of industries. It will.
I agree.
It will explode when people have the skills. We have the capabilities for simulation to be used in real time. When you think about simulation being able to adapt, what's that real-time decision I need to make in the manufacturing environment because of personalization to pivot what the bill of process is and what that line needs to do. And it's not an operator changing the machine. It's a simulation saying, this is what's happening with the machines. You need to change these things and be able to decide on a dime, how to change. I think real-time adaptation from simulation and a robust digital twin of production will be incredibly powerful as the industry that I have committed my career to, moves into a place where personalization becomes much more scaled. I mean, we will get to a place where food is personalized and defined. Think about food as fuel.
Yeah.
It's not about what I'm making. It's about what am I making for you so that you can be healthier.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So consumer products is here. It's benefiting from digitization for real, right? A lot of people don't think it through this point about bottle of soap. It's so unfair to say it that way, but I will. But it's
say a bottle of wine. It's not
okay. But it's produced many places in the world, right?
Absolutely.
And these plant managers, they have all this freedom to do what they need to do, but at the same time, they have to deliver quality. As third world markets catch up with first world markets, that they will expect, in fact, demand the same quality. And because they can switch so quickly to the competitor, they will switch if you screw up the quality. So it's interesting. So,
yeah, I think quality. I think that's a place. I use the words digitization and digital very differently.
Okay.
I think my industry I love, has spent billions of dollars. We'll use that B word again, on bringing digital technologies to sometimes broken processes or the current process and how it works.
Yeah.
I call that digitizing.
Yeah.
They just created a digital broken process.
Yeah.
So
maybe it's more visible that it's broken. Maybe.
Yeah, it connects better. And I've had conversations with people that said, you got to be really scared of that, because in a digital world, if the data flows downstream to manufacturing, if it's a broken process, Up in R&D, it might be okay if it's between 3 and 4. If it's 3.2, not 3.3, it matters in manufacturing.
Yeah.
The data will flow. You got to make sure the data is quality and right. Very different than if you create a digital ecosystem and define your work processes to what they should be because you have digital technologies. It's not about can the IT or technology deliver the process I do today. It's what should my process be because I can do it differently because I have digital technologies.
Siemens is really lucky to have you. They need to have this discussion. I moonlight doing some other things, and one of them is advise people. And I think what you said really well there is people don't appreciate, manual processes that have bureaucratic paperwork. You can hide in them, right? and your broken processes can hide. And digitization, one of the things it's going to do is make it all visible, make the works visible, and that's a good thing because you want to fix them, right? People in the processes, they just need to know this is going to happen, and they don't get a choice. By the way, it is going to happen where it becomes much more transparent. And you just got to learn to adapt. You really want a really good process that makes you profitable. That's what it's all about. And so the transparency should be embraced, not be.
But I do think, I came to Siemens for a reason.
Okay. Just wasn't because they're in Cincinnati?
Wasn't because they were in Cincinnati.
I'm just joking.
I mean, that helped. But there are lots of companies that have offices in Cincinnati.
That's true.
One of the reasons that I came to Siemens, frankly, was because I looked at their strategy. I mean, in my job at P&G, I was able to meet with lots of technology vendors. But when I looked at how Siemens thought about a digital enterprise, how they thought about digital twins, now I'm pretty proud of the language that we are using and how we think about digital threads and using our portfolio of solutions we call Accelerator to create solutions that are very process centric. And I think in a couple of months, you'll see some capabilities coming out of Siemens that, may surprise you based on the comments that you've made. Not technical capabilities, but capabilities about how to help our customers drive transformation that are pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we talk about a bit is silos that have developed over the decades, and then the silos don't work well together, right? And there's lots of reasons, and some of them are human nature. But to not talk about that, one of the things that I agree with you that's happening with the tool sets from Siemens and from others, but I know the Siemens tool set better than the others, is this ability to bridge across those silos, really bridging disciplines.
Absolutely.
So electrical, mechanical, embedded software, if there is embedded software, even improving the systems engineering aspect. Well, we could talk all day, and that would keep Thom from his other appointments, so we probably shouldn't do that. But let me move on to a moment to the pandemic, right? It's been affecting a lot of us, and I was curious. Well, how has working remotely affected you? I don't recall when you joined Siemens, but has that made your job as an industrial expert for a particular segment more difficult, that you have to do it all remotely?
Absolutely. I haven't traveled since March, which was, very odd because in my role, I was traveling all over the globe all the time. For a couple of years, I felt like my husband and I were just passing in the night, and now we've been, working at different ends of the house for almost a year.
We won't ask if it's working out. We'll just assume that.
No, it actually,
good.
I am one of those people. Best decision I ever made was choosing my partner for life.
Good for you.
Fantastic guy. In my job, one of the things that I've been known for, I put a pen in my hand, an executive in front of me, and I can whiteboard with them and help them think through their digital strategies, their digital transformation plans, pick priorities. Whiteboarding virtually is just different and harder. I've tried to build skills in those areas.
Interesting.
But making that connection with someone or a group of people about their strategy and helping them shape in a virtual world is much, much harder. I've worked virtually. I'm very comfortable with Teams, Zoom, video calls, things like that. But I've invested in myself on how do you be effective? in this virtual world because it's different. It's different.
That's good. Say it again. Give us 2 hints on what did you do to get better at it?
One was practice and be vulnerable enough to be critiqued. Because one of the things that I learned was in a virtual world, you think you know what the person on the other side of the wire is seeing and what they're hearing. You have no idea if their audio quality is bad or if your connection is bad. It sounds good to me. Or if the video is bad. So be very aware of asking questions to know that you can understand what the person receiving the information's experience is.
Interesting.
The second is in a big group. How do you engage the audience in your dialogue and your conversation so that you make sure they're still there?
Yeah, right.
Try to make people use video because when people turn off video, you have no idea if they've walked away and you're talking to a brick wall. So lots of little things, nothing rocket science.
Yeah.
But I think that COVID has been a fascinating experience in many ways. But when you think about connections, we are isolated in many ways, but I had a global job. So I was on the phone most of the time. I don't really have different tools available to me now than I did before, but now people use video. Where before they were comfortable with just staying on audio. I actually have better relationships with people all over the world because I've made different personal connections with them because we're now using video.
So here's one other challenge I've heard people, and I have this challenge, which is I use that travel time when I was going overseas as a bit of downtime to recuperate, right, from the next set of events. In this virtual world of the pandemic phase, do you ever have downtime, or do you schedule downtime?
I schedule downtime. Actually, I chose to. My husband is a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo, and I chose to start training with him.
Cool.
Because I needed to give myself a reason to walk away from my desk. Because when this first started, I realized I was, it was 10 o'clock at night, and I was still at my desk.
Yeah.
So I scheduled things to force myself to step away.
Yeah,
because otherwise the life balance just gets totally out of whack.
Yeah, and we at GM we experienced this, but well before the pandemic, and it's still happening, I'm sure now, but I'm not there. But we used to monitor how often we were on the calls to Korea and Europe and every now and then India. We had resources in India and you couldn't go over the 10, 12 hours a day without some severe coaching, right? Because you just weren't spending time. You were going from event to event to event, right?
Right.
And we got to better scheduled time blocks, which tended to favor the North American continent and not the others. But the point is, you really do have to schedule the time. It's no different now in the pandemic. You got to do better time blocking for sure. Well, I had one other question I wanted to ask you about the logistics companies like Amazon and how they have just, really blown it out of the park during the pandemic here. They've benefited is what I mean. They clearly have some analytics too. Now their analytics is about what you're willing to buy tomorrow and what you're willing to have shipped to your house. And all of that has changed. And yet look how fast they've responded. And yeah, we're all a little frustrated with some delays in package deliveries, but candidly, that has more with people being sick than it does with their analytics not working. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you've noticed? And I mean, you guys, you must deal with logistics companies a lot in the consumer products industry. Are there other synergies happening in the pandemic phases here with the Amazons of the world?
We work with Amazon all the time. So there's lots of synergies around, but from a logistics perspective, I'm not aware of big synergies. I think that I've been personally amazed by certain companies' abilities to pivot.
Yeah.
In this, even companies that, everybody joked that, my previous company couldn't get, Charmin toilet paper on the shelves fast enough. Nobody could get toilet paper on the shelves fast enough. The way that they were able to manufacture nonstop and the increase in quantity was just astronomical if you saw the numbers.
Interesting.
Getting it to the stores, I think, was a challenge. But sometimes It's just physical capacity. I remember when P&G changed Tide. So forget about COVID for a second. There was not enough truck capacity in the United States to do that launch all on the same day. Just physically wasn't. And I think that's a part of logistics now is, there's just not enough, the amount of drivers that Amazon has increased, my son works for Amazon, is astronomical. But it's also data sharing that's happened. Even think about ventilators.
Yeah.
What happened there with all these different companies that didn't make ventilators or didn't make, gels, pivoting to be able to manufacture something different to serve what people needed during COVID was absolutely amazing to watch.
And a lot of that is because of digital technologies, the kind of stuff we talk about here at the Digital Enterprise Society. We tend to often talk about designing the thing or the machine that makes the thing, but there's a lot of other digital technologies, and this analytics area, it is mature in terms of people like yourself that know what to do, right?
Right.
Now doing it faster and faster and faster because machines are cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and a big company that delivers products becomes a cloud provider, right? I mean, this whole cloud evolution with Amazon Web Services is just amazing to me. But I expected it from the Microsofts. I didn't actually expect it. It's just narrow-mindedness.
I think Amazon will shock everybody. They are not a retailer. People went, oh, Amazon got in business because of books. I'm like, they are not a retailer. They are a massive, innovative technology company.
I read something once where Bezos, what really motivated him was all the inefficiencies he saw.
Yeah.
It's just in delivering the thing to the person willing to buy it. And it doesn't matter what the things are, he just saw inefficiencies. So there's an inspiration, folks. If you see inefficiencies, chances are there's computers and smart people that want to help you fix it, right?
But I think when we look back on COVID 5 years from now, it's going to be a massive accelerator of business model changes.
Well, I think you're probably right. And those that realize it and embrace that will be on top. And the folks that don't realize it will join me in retirement.
Yeah. And my job, part of my job, Thom talked about my job at the beginning of this, part of my job in the future. I think helping consumer products companies embrace technologies that can help them deliver that. If you think about Siemens, industry software tagline, everything that we do every day is we wake up to develop the technology solutions that help transform work processes to help our customers deliver tomorrow's innovation in, when consumers need it, when companies need it. So, that is what we need to do. I think it's going to be, I think COVID just puts a lot of pressure to do that faster.
Yeah. And, Suzanne, it's been wonderful chatting with you. We could go longer, but we will not. So thank you very much. I love hearing about consumer products as opposed to where I came from, and then all those guys that do one-of-a-kind military things. We have synergies in the engineering challenges. We just have to look for where the hard problems are. And in consumer products, what I want you to all remember today, the hard problems are in manufacturing and logistics. And they've been doing data science for decades. Just ask Suzanne. They already know that. Thom, it's back to you.
This was a great conversation. And actually, Suzanne, I'm not going to let you leave yet because there was a couple things that I wanted to share that I think from a career standpoint for our listeners, there's two things. The first thing is from the moment you started talking about your career at Procter & Gamble for 25 years, all the way through what you've now are doing for Siemens, you light up like a Christmas tree. You have really enjoyed your career. And I think a lot of people would love to be in a situation. Do you have any tips for how people can sort of embrace their career the way you clearly have for joy?
It's been easy for me. I love this industry. I love what I do. I think that's what people have to do is figure out, choose what you love. Like we spend so much time working. You got to find something that makes you happy, that nurtures your soul, that doesn't feel like work. What's not to like though? I mean, I've been very blessed to be able to meet amazing people all over the world from a diverse set of companies with different perspectives and help them figure out how to get better and transform. And I have this phenomenal toolbox of solutions to help them do that. That was all fun.
No, well, the joy in your soul comes through in just a phenomenal way. And the other thing was when you and Craig were talking about COVID and the changes, you said something that we sort of touched on, but I want to make sure everybody heard it. And you were talking about the fact that you invested in yourself. And I think that is so important for everyone who wants to get ahead in their career. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I imagine this isn't the first time that you've invested in yourself.
Oh, no, not at all. I think, part of being successful, I think, is being a continual learner. I am lucky that I have a great set of networks around me. I have one that every single Friday I get an email that says, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of what level you are in the company, if you are or want to be an executive, you should know that these 10 things happened this week, and here are the top 10 articles that you need to read. And so on Sunday mornings, before I go to mass, I sit there and I catch up on, what those things are. What I didn't say to Craig is I always look for diverse perspectives. I learned everything that I started my PLM journey with from automotive and aerospace. Because I didn't look at them as different. I didn't look at the challenges. I said, at the time, they are much more mature than consumer products. So what can I learn from them, adapt it to what consumer products needs, and then accelerate? So diversity of perspective, always invest in yourself, because we all can continue to develop our skills. And, have mentors and advocates around you that will be honest with you and give you feedback along the way, so that you can adapt and adjust.
Craig, how often do we hear that? Have mentors. Comes up with about half of the people I ask career questions to.
I think people get so busy, they don't take time to build that network. And Suzanne's advice, it's right on. Stay in touch and also reach out, and you got to spend a bit of time nurturing that network. So,
yeah.
And I also think those of you that might be like Suzanne and I in your next to last job or your last job, give back, right? You learned a lot in the industry you were in, and bring those learnings and apply them, whether it's a company that wants your insight or an individual that wants your insight. That there's both ways to help. And one of the things I find enjoyable here in semi work and post or mostly retired is people want help. They ask. Companies want help. They ask.
Yeah.
So you get the luxury of choosing who you help, and it's a lot of fun. So don't shy away, and for goodness sakes, there's a lot of well, this week's been pretty positive news around the pandemic, but in previous weeks it's been really terrifying, and it is a drag on all of us. But there's a lot of other things you can find that will lift your spirits, and it was really wonderful chatting with Suzanne today as we enter the Christmas season, though this will probably be broadcast in the new year. So
yeah, I think
thanks again, Suzanne.
This clearly,
thank you. It's been great.
We are kicking off the new year, and we're excited about that. So everyone who's listening, make a commitment, invest in yourself. And part of that investment in yourself is every single week, tune in to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast and hear from these amazing guests that we have, like Suzanne. So join us next week, where we're going to have more thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management. And always remember that the Digital Enterprise Society, it is the place for the exchange of ideas around digital manufacturing tools. Go check us out at digitalenterprisesociety.org.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for more connection without boundaries and creation without limits.